Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. I offer both group and individual healing programs. You can find that and other resources at my website at covertnarcissism.com. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson, and I'm so glad to have you here today. Today, we have a guest with us. Her name is Lynn, and I'm really super excited to dive into this conversation today. But Lynn, I just want to welcome you here. How are you doing today?
I'm really good. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'm very happy to hear what you have to say, and very, very happy that you're willing to join us here and share your story with this audience.
Absolutely ready to share.
All right. So the question that we are kind of diving into right now is, how did you know that this was more than just normal marital struggles? That's kind of the little mini series that we are, exploring right now. And so that's what we're talking about. And so, Lynn, I'm going to ask you, did you believe that the issues that you were having in this relationship were normal marital struggles?
I did in the very, very beginning. But I would say things started to change for me probably a year into the relationship. It would have actually been a year exactly, because it was a trip that we took together for our first anniversary. It was just the two of us. So on that particular trip, I was starting to doubt things. So
Okay.
it took a year.
It took about a year. Okay.
Yes.
And so that's not very long. And for me, I actually was a year as well, was when things really kind of showed up, and I still convinced myself that, every marriage has its issues, and that I still convinced myself that it was normal. Did you go through that as well?
I absolutely did go through that. He was very good at turning things around and having good answers. The things that I would have called red flags on our vacation, I actually had talked to him or asked him about those things that were bothering me, and I was overreacting. That's not how he meant it. Those types of answers is what I was getting.
So he was telling you that you were overreacting, and that that's not what really.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That I'm being jealous, I'm sensitive, those types of things.
Right. Okay. And did you believe that and go, okay, well, surely it's me and I'm not seeing things right?
Eventually, I would say during the vacation, there was maybe one day where I was really feeling uncomfortable, but then things kind of just smoothed over with the last few days of the vacation. And again, he can be very charming when he wants to be. And I think I just kind of said, okay, this was just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And swept things under the rug like I always did.
Yeah.
Yes. Or another thing I would do is just make excuses for him, because I know he comes from a traumatic background just as a child, even. So I would make those types of excuses for him.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very easy to do. And did you believe that kind of everyone else has these issues and problems as well?
At that point, I did, because of his background. At that point, yes. Yes.
Okay. And how did this affect you?
I was afraid to really speak up with anything anymore at that point, because the things that I had brought up on our vacation, were flirting with other women. There was one point where he took a picture of me, and there was a younger gal in the background in a bikini, and that picture of me and this stranger, he actually sent it to somebody else, actually in his family, and said, "Look at the hottie in the background." Like I just felt really small.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so I just think I got to a point where I was really afraid to say anything, so we wouldn't talk about things at all.
Hmm. And did this then have any like personal effects on you?
It absolutely did. I became, not knowing it at the time, but just became more depressed. I just kind of went along, with whatever it was that he wanted to do over, what I would really want to do. Kind of lost touch with my friends. Um, so yeah, it definitely affected me. I was self-medicating with alcohol, which is a no-no. And I was
That's
eating,
easy to fall into. It's easy to fall into that because you can't make sense of your world.
and I gained an extreme amount of weight. I was also medicating with food because
Okay.
I loved to eat and bake and cook.
Mhm.
So, yes. And I also noticed that I started to kind of like pull away from family and friends. He was really good at kind of like he played both sides. He saw my insecurities within my family structure. He played both sides. To me, he would bicker about, my mom or my daughter. And then, to my daughter or my mom, I found out that, he was smearing me in text messages to them. So he definitely played on my insecurities within my family.
Okay. Okay. And that's the triangulation then that ends up forming is then they pit people kind of against each other in that way, and you end up just isolating in order to keep peace.
Correct. That's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was doing.
Okay. All right. Did when did you suspect that this was more than just normal disagreements? Now you said it at the beginning, even a year in, that you kind of saw it and that it was there, but it got swept back under the rug. Was there a point at which you stopped sweeping things under the rug?
I did, and I can honestly say that, and we did things. My situation is unique. We were in a relationship for 5 years. We I had my own home. He had his. Um, I sold my home and we merged units eventually. So I would say for me, it was, I kind of had some ideas before we moved in together. So it would have been early to maybe springtime of 2023. We moved in together in our own home, owned by both of us in July, August of 2023. So I had some red flags before we went into the home situation, but at that point, I had already had money invested, my own money invested, and I knew that if I pulled out, that I had a feeling that he would behave in not a nice way.
Okay.
So went through with it, and so we lived together as of August 1st, and by October, November, December, I was already trying to navigate how I was going to get out of this situation.
Okay. Okay. And in getting out, how did that go?
Not well at all. I tried to talk to him numerous times, numerous arguments, the circle conversation, constantly, getting turned around on me. I was just getting to a point where I wasn't feeling safe anymore. So what I did was, because he has his own business, and over the holidays in December, every December, the past 4 years of our relationships was always a struggle because his business is really, there's another excuse I was making
Mhm.
for him.
Right.
The business was always crazy. So after not being able to talk to him and him getting really angry and rageful and just not listening to me, I had rented a place for a safe space. It's about 10 minutes from here because if there was an argument, I wanted to be able to get away from it. And I also wanted a place where my daughter could go as well.
Okay.
So when he found out about that, like everything, like he just retaliated completely. And it was a spiral downward from that point on.
Okay. Okay. And you mentioned that we make these excuses for them, and we all do. We're all guilty of that. And there's no doubt that, during that time of his business being more stressful, that,
Mhm.
that's an easy excuse. But there's a lot of people who go through a stressful time in their business who don't treat other people this way.
Right,
And
right,
that's one of the things we have to really realize to quit making the excuses.
right. And his mother, would do it. And I was pretty, close with her. It seemed like everyone would go along with that same excuse.
Okay.
Is just he never was able to control his anger or emotions. Whatever he wanted to say would always just fly out of his mouth with no boundaries whatsoever, regardless of who it hurt.
Hmm. So no boundaries and no empathy.
Oh my gosh, no empathy whatsoever. Zero. For
Okay.
me anyway, and for my family. It was like he had his own set of rules, for him and his grown son, and me and my children that I had from a previous marriage. We have our own set of rules, completely different, completely hypocritical.
Right. Right. And that is very common with covert narcissism. Okay. So
Yeah.
how are these, we have normal disagreements with people. And I say normal, just meaning that in non-narcissistic relationships, we have disagreements that happen. How are these different from the ones that you were dealing with then with your partner?
Um, well, some of the things that I can talk about are he shared our very personal stuff that should just be between couples with everybody else. I found this out when I felt like I was kind of backed in a corner, by him,
Hmm.
and and again, I was self-medicating with alcohol. Like I did need help, but he wasn't being accountable, and he was part of my problem with my depression and the reasons that I was drinking. And I learned that later when I actually went to inpatient therapy
Okay.
for alcohol. So after I got out of my inpatient therapy, I found out through, I don't mind sharing with, friends who I'm really close with, but I found out just how much he had smeared me, and sharing way more than I would ever want to share to coworkers. Um,
Wow.
his son, daughter-in-law, his friends, he overshared, so much to my neighbors that I had at the time, um, too much. And when I asked him why he was doing all the sharing with my neighbors, I never would have shared these things with. He actually told my neighbors that I was having suicidal thoughts and I was depressed and I was an alcoholic and, blah, blah, blah. And he had said when I asked him, why did you do that? Because I'm a very, very private person. He said, well, I was really struggling and I needed to vent. I needed to talk about it too. That was what he had said back to me after that experience in my therapy, inpatient therapy.
So he had to talk about it for him to get help, but that meant he had to talk about it with your coworkers and your friends.
Mhm.
That doesn't
Right.
make sense. Whereas if he really needed to talk about what was going on in his world, it would be his friends that he would be reaching out to.
Right, right. But it wasn't in a nice way. The things that I heard afterwards, it was just kind of again the smear campaign or a condescending. Even afterwards, we went out as a group with some of his friends, and he was making jokes about it. Like, now that I'm not locked up anymore,
Oh, wow.
and it was humiliating. It really was humiliating. And then during all this, I was actually, because my daughter was a teenager, and her and I were having some difficult times, and they were probably exaggerated, because of my partner at the time. But I was actually researching ADHD for her because I saw a lot of the symptoms in her, and she was struggling at the time with her schooling and stuff, and just other things. And that actually brought me to a point where I confided in my own family doctor, and I was diagnosed with ADHD during all this, which makes a lot of sense when it comes to the self-medicating
Mhm.
with the drinking, because when you have ADHD, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, and I had struggles already, even before him, with impulsivity and emotional dysregulation,
Right.
poor time management. So it just exaggerated my ADHD.
Well, and all of that leaves you vulnerable to a narcissistic
Hmm.
relationship. I will say that
Yes.
one of the things I'm exploring right now is all the different vulnerabilities that we have in our life that kind of sets the stage for us to end up in a relationship with a narcissistic person if that's who swoops in to become our rescuer or our hero.
Hmm. Yes, I've been reading that as well. But he put himself as my rescuer in that event where I was in patient therapy. He was my hero, and he helped me. That's, I think, how he was viewing himself. But really,
Mhm.
um, he was smearing me to everybody. And
Well, and he's the one that had created the situation that just exacerbated everything in the first place.
right, absolutely,
Okay.
100% believe that. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, in all of this with these disagreements, was there ever a time when he would take accountability or apologize and let things get resolved like in a healthy way like you see with other people in your world?
No, absolutely not. It was more of like, I'm sorry you feel that way, even to this day, because I, I completely see everything now. And even to this day, we've tried therapy a few times. I still have not received any apologies from him whatsoever. They're just, they're not real apologies. They're
Mhm.
more of, like I said, I'm sorry you feel that way, or, oh, I didn't mean it that way. That was another big one. Oh, well, that's not how I meant it. I'm not good with words, those kinds of things.
So his own set of excuses.
Right. And making more excuses. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Len, how are you doing now?
I am doing really well. I am still sharing a residence with him because I'm afraid if I leave right now that I'm not going to get back what I, put in this home. But I am looking for apartments, and it's a little tricky when you have a dog that's over 35 pounds. There's all these rules and stipulations. But aside from all of that, I am better than I have been, you know, even as a child, because now I know why I had all these troubles, in school. Because a lot of times you don't just have ADHD, there's different forms of dyslexia that you can have too. But I'm doing well. My family is doing well. I got a new job doing something that I absolutely love. I'm working in a school district with kiddos, and I could not be more at peace, with myself
I'm so
right
glad to
now.
hear that. And so even while the relationship is still like kind of there and not broken
Mhm,
yet, not broken apart yet,
mhm.
you're still able to do some healing even within the same home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just, I have my boundaries. We don't speak. If I have to tell him something, like the other day, I had someone coming to shampoo carpets. I have a chalkboard and I just wrote on, so and so will be here. I do not communicate verbally with him whatsoever.
I like the chalkboard idea. I hadn't thought of that one. I like
Mhm.
that idea. Okay.
Yeah.
Dry erase board, something like that.
Yeah, it's actually a room divider, a standing screen slash chalkboard, and it's like right in the living area. So you can't say, "Oh, I didn't see it," because you see it and you see it really well.
Okay. All right. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for sharing your story here. Do you have any words for the audience that's here? Just words of hope and encouragement to those who are living this?
Gosh, you just have to take off your blinders and stop making excuses for him and focus on yourself and do what you want to do. For me, just a daily walk on the outside in the mornings is therapy for me. Of course, I do still have, a therapist that I see, but just it feels like to me, setting boundaries, staying true to myself, because I feel like I lost myself in that relationship for those 5 years. And, getting involved with groups of people that are good for you, not
Mhm.
not hanging out with people that are not going to understand what you're going through, because I even have, close family members that aren't understanding it, and they're not always going to be respectful. They're going to cross over boundaries sometimes. So find your people is what I recommend, and just talk about it, because the more you talk about it, the better you're going to feel.
Yeah. Well, that is 100% true. And on that note, this is a large part of why I started offering the group sessions that I do offer, is because you need those people. You need that tribe of people who get it and who understand what you're talking about. Before you even get two sentences out of your mouth, they're already nodding, going, I know exactly what you're talking about. And you just need
Right.
that validation.
Yes, everybody does.
Everybody does. Okay. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for sharing your story here. I just really, truly appreciate you being open, being vulnerable and willing to share. And it's just such an awesome way to help those out there listening who are living this as well. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Renee. Thank you.
And everyone out there listening, thank you so much for joining us today. And I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism Podcast. If you are struggling with covert narcissism in your life, I help people to heal from covert narcissistic abuse. If you are struggling with the isolation, the self-doubt, and the obsessive thinking, then this is the program for you. I offer both group and individual options. This is live, personalized coaching that is specific to covert narcissism. Reach out to me anytime. You can find me at my website, covertnarcissism.com. I'm not a therapist and you are not a victim. I am a coach and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism Podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.